Well, good afternoon and welcome to Wanaroo Park for round 4 of the Australian Touring Car Championships. And as you can no doubt hear, there's plenty of activity at Wanaroo Park at the present time on what is a very pleasant day in Perth. Fine, warm, a temperature in the low 20s. Plenty of action. The big news, of course, after practice yesterday was the fine return by Peter Brock. He's drawn the pole after a 62.37, and beside him on the grid will be the defending champion, Dick Johnson. That's in the future. Right now, let's go up and join Will Hagan.
A hot field formed up on the grid for the 4th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship at Wanaroo Park in Western Australia. It's over 35 laps, that's 84.5 kilometres, and the first 5 cars separated by only 0.38 of a second, they being 2 Commodores, a Falcon, an RX-7 Mazda and a Bluebird Turbo. What a magnificent mix of cars. Then in the next 5 we have this formation with now less than 30 seconds to go to the start of what could be a most dramatic 4th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, being led by George Fury at this stage. Engine revs rising, national flag unfurled and raised, and it's down and they're away, and it's a great start by Dick Johnson using second gear, and Moffat an even better start. Johnson using 4,000 revs as he dropped the clutch, and it's Johnson from Moffat. Moffat's trying to get round the outside of him. Brock, Fury, then Grice is 5th, Parsons is 6th, Cullen is 7th, Wilmington 8th, Benson Brown 9th, Harrington 10th. Johnson, a great start, but a magnificent start from this man in car 43, Alan Moffat, up to the top of the hill for the first of 35 laps, being followed by Brock Fury. Cold corner. Brock now up with the pair in front, and looking at them and assessing, and Grice past Fury and Parsons in 6th.
Ready mixed straight for the first time, and Peter Brock ranging up on the outside of Alan Moffat in car number 43, Brock in car 5 in the red and white, and on to the main straight now at the end of their first lap, their first of 35, so it's Dick Johnson in the blue XE Falcon, Alan Moffat in 2nd place, and Peter Brock on the outside, squeezes the Commodore through into 2nd place under brakes. Has he got him? But Moffat fights back. Moffat's car, the lightest of the touring cars out there today, 1,002 kilograms, and being led by the heaviest car in the field at some 1,400 odd kilograms, Dick Johnson in the XE Falcon.
68.3 was Dick Johnson's standing lap time. He said that he doesn't use first gear off the start line, he uses 2nd and only about 4,000 revs. Too much power in 1st, as Grice runs wide behind Brock, in front of Fury, and Moffat's in the lead. Johnson might crack back at him on the exit, but under brakes, Moffat, I think, will murder him down at Kodak Corner at the end of the long straight. Have a look. Yesterday he was devastating them under brakes, as Johnson under power has him, and now watch the braking. But Johnson's got him covered.
Moffat dives across the track to the inside as Peter Brock ranges up on the outside once again and challenges Moffat at the end of their 2nd lap. And now Brock goes for the inside underneath Dick Johnson.
So, from 1st to 3rd in half a lap for Alan Moffat. Still Grice 4th, Fury 5th. Was that some smoke from Grice's car? And then Parsons is 6th, Cullen 7th. Harrington 8th. Wilmington, Benson Brown 9th and 10th.
Now watch Moffat as they go down towards Kolb Corner in the lighter car as he ranges alongside Peter Brock.
And look at Fury though, nibbling at Grice, as again Moffat, this time not thrusting for 1st but trying to get out of 3rd.
Dick Johnson with a lot of oversteer on the XE Falcon on that occasion.
Well, Dick Johnson yesterday was sitting on pole position until the dying moments of practice, and he did a truly heroic lap time. The job he did. Brock will not get him there, but will duck back to the inside on the exit, and could have him down the straight because he can get out of the corner better than Johnson.
Both of them running the Dunlop 021 compound.
Under brakes, we've got the 3rd of 3 different leaders. So, with 3 laps completed, they're on their 4th. We've had 3 different leaders, each of the first 3 cars at the moment. Still Grice Fury behind them, Parsons, Cullen, Harrington, Wilmington and Benson Brown. Brock do here as Johnson's car goes all over the place behind him. And Dick's got a big heart. and tons of experience in that car, but boy, he's fighting a losing battle as Moffat realises that grabs second. He wants to continue or renew the argument with Peter Brock. Still Fury. I was going to say still Fury. It's not still Fury. Fury's past Grice. So Grice, who really hasn't been up in the very front-running pace for the entire weekend, is now relegated to 5th place. Brock, Moffat, Johnson, Fury, Grice. Parsons just nipping in the back of picture there in 6th. The Tasmanian privateer dairy farmer doing a great job. But Alan Moffat, who's shown the great Moffat intensity this weekend, he's done his loner act, arrived at the circuit well after most of the other drivers, hasn't said boo to any of them, has kept right in his shell and concentrated on the job in hand. He was also the first car at the circuit when they started sorting earlier in the day, or earlier in the week.
Moffat, in fact, did some 120 laps on Friday in setting the car up for this race. And as they come down to end another lap, it's Alan Moffat now hard on the heels of Peter Brock as they cross the start-finish line. Brock, who's got a lot to prove at this particular round after having a shocking start to the Australian Touring Car Championship with a did-not-finish result at Calder with gearbox problems. He finished second at Sandown after coming off pole position, and of course a did-not-finish at Symmons Plains at the 3rd round of the National Championship with all sorts of problems with the Commodore. But look at Moffat harrowing away at the back of Peter Brock as they go up to the top of the course.
63.93 Brock's lap time for the last lap, as Moffat, if he can stay there, will grab the lead. Under brakes, but Brock just is able to hang on to the throttle long enough to hit the corner early enough in front of Moffat for him not to be able to jump down the inside. But what about down here? Look at him slipstreaming over the top. Long straight, this one. Downhill and pretty breathtaking stuff with very little runoff at the bottom. Moffat, the lightest car but the least powerful in the field, a 64.4 that lap for Brock. Look how Moffat gets out of this corner as he widens the opening to it. Well set up for the Cicchelli S's, trying to find a way around. He's trying to find a way around everywhere. And if he can do this at this stage, with Brock's tyres at their best and only going to get worse, how then will the latter stages of the race be? Grice is in the pits at this stage, so the man lying second in the point score on 50 points from victory in the last 2 rounds at Sandown and at Symmons, in the pits, and therefore a chance of major placing gone.
They had some problems with that car yesterday after it blew a lower radiator hose off in the 2nd session of practice, and they had a nagging problem all weekend with a little oil leak that they just could not trace.
They also changed the differential this morning after a warm-up session as Brock does a 64.31. Johnson is in 3rd, just in front of George Fury. And they changed the differential later today, so Parsons is 5th, Harrington is 6th. 7th is Wilmington, 8th is Clive Benson-Brown.
Warren Cullen also in the pits with engine problems. He knocked a gudgeon out of the engine on Friday, had an engine change on Friday night, and again changed the engine last night after having a gudgeon flown from Melbourne.
Braking duel possible here, but not quite close enough, and Brocklock not leaving anything open on the inside. And again, the squirt of the V8 here is defeating Moffat each lap. He can't stay with it to slipstream it down the straight and then outbrake it at the bottom. It's a long, steep haul up there, and look at the distance Brock pulls out, and then look at what Moffat does to him under brakes. The diminution of speed does constantly bring the cars closer together anyway physically, but nevertheless he's also pulling time. 64.4 that lap for Brock, so sitting in around the 64.5, just under.
Brock's car weighing in the Saturday weigh-in session at 1,232 kilograms, just 2.5 kilograms over the minimum weight for the Commodore as prescribed by the Confederation.
Fury is third, in front of Johnson fourth, Parsons fifth, Harrington sixth, Wilmington, Benson, Brown.
Moffat once again all over the back of Peter Brock like a cheap suit as he goes underneath once again and gets through. Alan Moffat back into the lead. Peter Brock goes for a tighter apex on the turn, an earlier apex, but Moffat's got the little Mazda wound up.
Brock should have him down the straight, but it might make Moffat close enough to be able to bring him undone again under brakes. Is this the end of the V8 challenge in round 4?
Kodak corner.
64.4 for Moffat that lap. Fury, as long as Brock and Moffat keep each other occupied, may pull up ground on the leading pair, but Brock's falling away from him as Moffat streams away. They have completed 9 and are on their 10th. Over the top to through the fastest corner, and now Kolb corner. This slow right-hander at the bottom. And Brock falling off him so much. Falling away, losing nearly 2 seconds in not much more than a lap.
Alan Moffat, who hasn't been to Wanaroo Park Raceway for some 5 years, last drove the Cologne Ford Capri at Wanaroo. Peter Brock having finished second here in 1982.
And we said earlier, I suggested that this might, once Moffat hit the lead and Brock was unable to stay with him and keep the pressure on, as Fury comes into view there, not very far behind Brock in second place. He, of course, the series leader, the only man that's completed every lap of every round of the Touring Car Championship. For only 3 people have completed all rounds, and the other 2 have all been lapped in smaller class cars. And George has a total of 72 points in the series, which, if he drops his worst score, still leaves him in the lead, as he'll have to do out of 8 rounds. Still leaves him in the lead on 51 points over the 50 of Grice, who's out of this round.
And as they came through the S's, Fury was 4.2 seconds behind Peter Brock and closing the gap.
Moffat is now about 1.5 seconds in front of Brock and 4.6 seconds further back to Fury in third place. And about 3 seconds back to Johnson. Here's Fury third.
Turbo Bluebird with an amazing little power plant underneath it, 1770cc, turbocharger producing about 2400cc, 5-speed gearbox, a car that is about to lose some 15 odd kilograms because the Nissan team manager Howard Marsden is building a 3rd car for the Endurance Championships. They're going to put a new roll cage into the car and lighten the car off, making it more competitive once again. It weighs in at the moment at some 1,042 kilograms. Somewhat heavier than the Mazda, but certainly a rapid motor car, handles very nicely.
Gap first to second, 1.8 seconds, to third placed Fury 4 seconds, and from Fury to Johnson 3.8 seconds.
Twice the Australian Rally champion, winner of the Southern Cross Rally, George Fury, who's having a delightful time in one of the most professional teams in Australian motor racing, enjoys every bit of his racing, including the testing side of it, which is what is keeping them very busy in the Nissan team. A car which has trimmed some 13 to 14 seconds off its lap times of 18 months ago. And a car that so far, both the management of Nissan in Australia and certainly in Japan are very, very happy with.
2.28 seconds first place to second. Now Fury unchanged at 4 seconds to third and pulling out on Johnson, who's 4.4 in arrears. The race leader, though, still Alan Moffat with 12 laps completed on their 13th. And this the man whose lead is gone out to 2.2 seconds over Peter Brock. We'll get some lap times on Moffat, who had problems in the car getting in this section from the Chikelli S's. The left-hand BP now is a steep climb up there. It's a light car but the least powerful in the field, and with a big fuel load it really does gasp its way up there. In fact, Moffat says it's uncompetitive. He spears over the top of the hill and now down to Kolb Corner. It's braking beautifully around the circuit, and so Alan Moffat's team thought about tactics, thought about the race, and reckoned that one of their chances to stay competitive on this circuit, one of the few undulating circuits that give the cars a hill to climb in Australia, was perhaps to start with a light fuel load. From the way he's going, that looks as though it's what he might have done, because he certainly had early race sprint speed on. And just behind Moffat there, a car, one of the local drivers, John Eaton, has spun, but just in front of Brock, but with Brock quite unaffected. Moffat now on his 14th lap, 15th, completed 14.
And 3.7 seconds between first and second Moffat and Brock.
So this is the situation in the Touring Car Championship as it is at the moment. George Fury, the man lying third in this race at this stage, leads the series overall. From Alan Grice, retired from this race, Moffat, who's leading it, Harrington, who's lying fifth, Murray Carter, who's not competing, nor is Laurie Nelson, Dick Johnson, who's fourth, Cullen, who's retired, Gary Rogers, who didn't start, Peter Brock, who's running second, Bob Holden not running, and Clive Benson Brown, who's running around at the moment in 8th place.
And now 3.5 seconds between Peter Brock in second position and George Fury in third in the Turbo Bluebird.
I would respectfully suggest that if you think this race is over and that this car, being driven by the bespectacled 44-year-old, recently made a father for the first time, Alan Moffat, then you're very wrong, because there's a strategy up the sleeve of the Peter Stuyvesant team that in a few laps' time is likely to throw this race wide open. That's the gap, which on a watch is 4.12 seconds to Brock, 2.6 seconds to Fury. Fury is catching Brock, the series leader, and 8.65 seconds to Johnson.
And Moffat with the right-hand side indicator on. All of the teams have their own separate codes in the use of the indicators in as far as conveying messages to their crew. So it's going to be very interesting to see what, in fact, Alan Moffat is going to do at the middle stages of the fourth round of the 1983 Australian Touring Car Championship, with the fifth round coming up next weekend at Adelaide.
It's a 35-lap race here at Wanaroo, a 2.41 kilometre circuit. An excellent circuit in terms of what the challenge to the drivers. And here he comes for the planned pit stop. He started with a light fuel load, and in he comes at the end of lap 16, just completing 17. In fact, Peter Brock's the new leader. George Fury goes into second place. This is planned. They reckon they could do it in 11 seconds. He's out. Alan Moffat out and chasing now on the rest of the field, and he is still in third place. Johnson gets him, does he? He held third. Dick Johnson still is fourth. What's that say about the competitiveness of a Ford Falcon? And That was the planned situation in the Peter Stuyvesant team. About 1 or 2 laps earlier than we thought they'd make it. They were keeping it confidential from all the other crews in the race naturally. They told us before the race it was on. And what a brilliant manoeuvre it might have been, because they reckon with a full fuel load on that would let them do the race, they would not have been competitive. They had to gamble. They told the clerk of the course there were no limitations on speed in and out of pit row. They told the clerk of course what they were doing. They've done it, and now we have to wait and see if it's worked. Brock, across the start-finish line.
Moffat 10.5 seconds behind Peter Brock at this stage.
And Fury could be our 4th race leader, because he's not very far behind Brock at all. He's 1.5 seconds behind Peter Brock. 1.5 seconds from the lead, the series leader. Moffat, 8.1 seconds behind Fury, so 9.6 behind the race leader, Brock. And Johnson already falling away from the flying Alan Moffat.
Peter Brock will be heading along the coast during the break between this round and next weekend's Adelaide round of the Touring Car Championship to go out marlin fishing with Clive Benson Brown in a 38-foot ship. I think you just about called it. Brock, a keen fisherman, a man who picked up a world title at Exmouth in Western Australia some years ago for his fishing exploits. But he's got a lot of work at the moment because George Fury in the Turbo Bluebird is hounding him.
Fury 1.4 seconds behind Brock, just 1/10 of a second reined in that last lap. Moffat, though, 6.8 seconds behind, so he is 8.2. He's pulled in 1.4 seconds in just over a lap. 1.4 seconds. They're on lap 20.
Out of 35. So it's more than feasible that Alan Moffat is going to be able to get back up to the head of the field now and get back into the fray of things with Peter Brock and George Fury at the top.
Fury reining Brock in, by G. He'll get to Brock before Moffat gets to him. 1.15 seconds from him is Fury from Brock. 5.77 to Moffat, pulling in better than a second a lap, and Johnson 6.7 seconds behind as Parsons skates off the circuit. Another point of the circuit involving Harrington as well. There he is, and he had a fairly fearsome run off the circuit there, and a not too tidy recovery back onto the circuit for that matter.
Both Parsons and Harrington had trouble here last year as well in the opening lap of the round of the Touring Car Championship.
Fury calmly, progressively reining in Brock. This is the section of track where the V8's at its best, but not down the bottom where Peter Brock has to pull up the whole 1,230 kilos of the car on fairly small front disc brakes. And Fury's 0.8 of a second behind him. And Moffat behind Fury is 4.5 seconds only. So it's 5.3, the gap first to third, and it was 9.6 when Moffat rejoined. What a good motor race. Watch the delicacy of Brock, trying to conserve his tyres, trying desperately to stop the car with brakes that if you abuse them will overheat, and being pursued and hounded by the little Nissan Turbo behind. One man able to wring the neck of his car, but less experienced. The other man not able to do it, but with great feel and delicacy and skill and enormous experience. And he's having to call on all of it.
Fury having his first drive around Wanaroo Park. Indeed, the Nissan team coming to Wanaroo for the first time
0.7 of a second from first to second, and 3 seconds back to Moffat in third. So it's like a beautifully organised handicap, this one.
And look at Fury now, right in the slipstream of the Commodore as he goes across to the inside as they crest the top of the hill and down towards Kolb Corner. And it's the farmer from Telmelmo in New South Wales, just out of Albury, and sometime bus driver who's now hounding for the lead of the 4th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, coming to you live from Wanaroo Park in Western Australia. Moffat still in 3rd place, and he's almost rejoined the fray. The RX-7 magnificent under brakes on this corner, Kodak corner on the 2.41 kilometre circuit.
0.6 of a second from Brock to Fury, and look how little it is back to Moffat.
2.4 seconds.
He might have stayed in his own cocoon this weekend, but he didn't stop him thinking, and it didn't diminish his fight or his determination to win, or his ability to come up with new ideas. And where we once thought that Fury might hit the lead and certainly was going to get to Brock before Moffat got to him, the opposite's happening. Now Moffat is closer to Fury than Fury is to Brock, and almost certainly we'll have him fairly soon. 63.34 Moffat's last lap, and coming up to complete 24 laps. They have 11 laps, remaining at the end of this one. So that daring bit of tactics by the Peter Stuyvesant Mazda RX-7 team just might pay off in the way that it is at the moment in Formula One, as Fury holds him out but won't down the straight, and Moffat goes back to 2nd place, and now only has to wrestle with Peter Brock to regain the lead of the race as Fury tries to duck his nose back in the right-hand side, but not quite quick enough to do it.
Moffat with 3 Australian Touring Car Championships to his credit in 1973, 6 and 7. Peter Brock also with 3 championships in 74, 8 and 80, so between them half a dozen Australian Touring Car Championships.
Being followed by a man with 2 Australian Rally Championships and great deeds on the dirt in forests in the dead of night. And look at this, after that pit stop, in the lead of the race, after they've run 24 laps. Last year's race run at an average speed of 132.4 kilometres an hour. Fury, the only car of those 3 with independent rear suspension, live banjo-type rear axles in both the Commodore and the RX-7 Mazda.
And interesting to contemplate that Alan Moffat is suggesting to the motor racing world at the moment that he really doesn't have a competitive car, that he does need the 13B Japanese rotary engine to be able to put his car at the head of the field. But by gee, the engine in this one at the moment is not doing a bad job.
Well, you've got 0.7 of a second covering the first 3 cars after 25 laps in this round 4 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. And does Moffat regain the lead as they run down to Kolb Corner? Not quite. But surely it can't be long as Fury all but gets his nose in. And this is doing Fury a power of good in the Nissan Turbo. He's having a look at the 2 more experienced drivers beside him, sticking with them well, and really making Moffat a little bit uncomfortable, and having to watch his rear as well as his front.
Brock glancing across to the pit crew, and Larry Perkins and John Harvey in the pits giving him all the signals, but he can see it at the moment as Alan Moffat drives around the outside.
Brock loves that and would not any way have got round Brock there. Brock would have Moffat in that position every day of the week, would suit him just fine. Just fine. That didn't worry Peter Brock one whit. As soon as Moffat started to make ground, Brock ran wide and said, "Cut back, boy, I need the track."
Of course, the thing that a lot of people don't realise is that the Mazda is a rather tyre-sensitive car too. It's not just a case of driving the pants off it for the entire period of time as he goes round the outside again.
Same thing here, and Brock says, well, it worked.
What does he say?
Amazing. Well, he says that I'd better see what 5 litres can produce for me now over the back and down the hill. And he comes back into the lead, and this is Brock at his most determined best, and Moffat about as determined. And the man with the big car with enough skill really can dictate, can Brock go on dictating to race end. He's completed 27 laps. Fury tucked in there in third, and Moffat really has the most mammoth task, because with Fury behind him, he's got a double job of covering himself as well as attacking, and that's most difficult.
Moffat lost a little bit of ground that time along pit straight as he came out of the Kodak corner, but regains it once again over the top of the rise.
Looks almost good enough there. Brock was a bit wide, but he's got a lot of speed down there.
Oh,
Then he's taken Moffat, and Fury leads. And incredible. And Brock, I was wondering how he was going to stop the car, and he didn't. And how long since you've seen Peter Brock spin a car? Fury had the good run through. Moffat did miracles to miss Brock. And here's your new race leader. And it's lap 28 of the round 4 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. And now Fury all but oversteps it, and Moffat comes back at him. And the gap is about 2.6 seconds. We'll get another version of that in a moment. First to second.
2.1.
The Chikeli S's. First and second. Well, he planned everything except that. He planned everything. But Peter Brock making an error.
So Dick Johnson in
and
third
that was
place.
brakes. And to an extent tyres. Let's have a look at it again. Great stuff. Tremendous pressure. And it's a long time since you've seen this man in that car get out of shape. And look at Moffat. He had to hit him, didn't he? How did he get out of it? Brock backed it out. But how still did Moffat miss him? Oh my goodness. And how did he not spin it? How did he keep it off Fury? It was brilliant stuff. And he's bogged in the sand pit. Look, somebody made the comment yesterday that this track is one gigantic sand pit, and there it is. They won't get it out. And George Fury now, the series leader on 72 points, from Moffat in third place on 48 points. And if Fury wins, he gets 30 points. If Moffat wins, he gets 25. If Moffat comes second, he gets 23, and if Fury comes second, he gets 27. So Fury is in a pretty handy situation. Moffat, new race leader. Fury trying to come back, but frankly, I don't think he's got the measure of him. He hasn't had in the race so far. 29 laps done. They're on their 30th. 5 and Kodak corner to go. But Fury's not over-arguing as they come up to lap Benson Brown. But Fury was the one that got untidy and dropped a little bit of ground back there.
Third placing is Dick Johnson in the XC Falcon, being followed by young 24-year-old Tasmanian Stephen Harrington in fourth place in the STP Commodore. And Moffat seeking some revenge on the touring car field after having some enormous scraps in the second and third rounds. Broken axle at Sandown after challenging for the lead with Alan Gryson. Moffat having a great battle. And then, of course, almost a carbon copy of that battle at round 3 of Simon Plains as we watch Peter Brock back the Commodore out of the sand trap.
1.34 seconds, the gap between first and second, although Moffat all the time is stretching that. So that it's now over 2. Four laps remaining. Well, Alan Moffat really has come through fire and brimstone in this race. The knowledge that he had to make a pit stop as Peter Brock rejoins. comes round now in front of Dick Johnson, but Peter Brock went off on lap 27 and has lost 3 laps. So he is tail end Charlie. He's 9th in the field at this stage. Still give him some points in his class. 13 will give him 9 points in the over 3 litre class. Gary Wilmington in the yellow Falcon there, in behind Moffat, one of a number of privateers. David Parsons, another, who've made the traipse across from the eastern states, covered thousands and thousands of kilometres, hundreds of dollars for fuel, probably a couple of thousand for airfares for their crews. A week of travelling, great determination, and they're to be commended. The people further back in the field as well as the front runners. Alan Moffat won the first round at Calder, where George Fury came second, and Fury immediately, by virtue of that, hit the lead, because in his class he gets 27 points for second as opposed to 25 for first in the outright class in which Moffat runs. At Sandown, Moffat retired with a broken axle, trying to find his way around Alan Grice. At Symonds Plains, Moffat was second, again in a brilliant race against Grice. Didn't quite pull it off. Came home to second there, where Fury came third. So he has a total of 48 points, and now we'll pick up 25 for first with 2 laps remaining. Fury, though, on 72 stands to pick up 27, will take him to 99 points. Moffat with 25 to 73.
George is now 2.5 seconds behind in second place. There's Moffat, and there's second place.
The gap to Fury as the locally run Les Verco Mazda RX-7 goes through.
And Dick Johnson still having a fairly lonely time, but back in third place, the man who turns 38 next Tuesday, and a man who at the moment is really taking some kicks. Hopes to be able to shed some 140 odd kilograms off the Falcon next year if they can only run this turbocharged 6-cylinder engine, doing away with the...
Says also that he's going to put the car away after Adelaide as they go out onto their final lap, or Moffat does, and won't come out until he's got it sorted and running really competitively. He says, I'm making a goat of myself at the moment, and I'll tell you what, it's not too much of a goat. And it's done with a pretty big heart and much appreciated by many of his loyal fans, because Dick Johnson's put up a great effort this weekend. His lap time yesterday, if you'd watched him doing it, was absolutely sensational and really was heroic stuff. Alan Moffat didn't even come out in the second session yesterday, although he did a 62.55 second lap. And here he is, and hasn't he deserved it? Cold corner, up the ready mix straight to Motorcraft Hill. The run down there, and he could, as they say, coast home from here just about, with a good lead over Fury, which will come out to about 4 seconds, I'd say. Kodak corner, and the run to the finishing flag for Alan Moffat in what has been a really great drive and a great bit of planning by the team. Fury comes in second, 3.34 seconds in arrears. Moffat goes around by Benson Brown across the start-finish line. Peter Brock next to cross the line, but it's Johnson who takes third place, and he was 19.87 seconds in arrears to second-placed George Fury. Fourth place will be Steve Harrington. And there's your race winner. And didn't he do well? That was a great job. Takes him in second place in the Touring Car Championship.
The winner of the 4th round of the 1983 Australian Touring Car Championship, Alan Moffat. Poetic justice after round 2 and round 3?
I guess you could call it that, but the fellow I was doing battle with in the first couple of rounds wasn't there, so it just shows when the heat gets on, you got to have a Mazda to win.
A magnificent effort from your crew in the pits to get the car in and out in 10 seconds. You must be very happy.
I think it was even less than that. It seemed like less to me. And I have to thank all the officials who were aware of our plan and made it smooth sailing for me. There's been occasions when I've been held up on pit lanes on the way out, and it's been rather frustrating. But I thank them sincerely and everyone in Perth that's put on such a fine race today.
In the upcoming rounds now, the Mazda suited to the other circuits?
Well, we've won a number of times in Adelaide and we've won a number of times at Surfers, and we hold the lap record at Lakeside. It could be very difficult for the others, and now that Grice didn't finish, I guess I don't know what the points will be like the way the Datsun gets its bonus points, but I'd say I'll be a very strong second place at the moment.
We were all surmising at the commentary box just how you missed Peter Brock and indeed George Fury after Peter's demise at the end of Kolb Corner.
Well, I was more concerned with George because I knew he was coming, but Peter did the predictable thing. He doesn't go crazy when he gets in a serious situation, but a split second that it took me, I was going to go left, and thank goodness I didn't because he kept going backwards, but I really did see his headlight coming up in a hurry.
The guy behind Moffat's very different strategy at Wanaroo is Alan Horsley, a guy who came up